Nichols family for a long time. My brother Will graduated with Steve. So I want to thank everyone for coming here today to express your love and your support. Your presence here is a tribute to Steve. We are here today to honor the life of Stephen Douglas Nichols, born April 5th, 1953, and went to be with the Lord on July 19th, 2024. I want to begin by saying how sorry I am for your loss. I wish I could take your sorrow away, but I know I can't. I will not take anything away from the grief you feel today. I will not say to you that everything is all right, because it's not. And you know it, you hurt. And I know you will hurt for a long time. God made us so that we could have relationships with one another, and when that relationship is lost, we feel pain. We have lost a loved one, and it hurts. The loss of a loved one is one of the most difficult times in life. I could get all churchy on you and long-winded on you, but that wouldn't be a tribute to Steve. Steve would probably be a little upset, and I don't feel like getting shocked today, so I'll just keep it shorter. Steve did believe, but he certainly wasn't the church-going type, and that's okay. I'm confident that God knew what he believed. I also think that God knows how you are feeling right now. Steve wouldn't have wanted you to be sad and grieving his passing. He always had a smile on his face no matter what was going on. He would want you to celebrate the life that he had and his accomplishments. Steve loved his family. He will be remembered for spending time with his children and grandchildren. He will also be remembered as the big brother who cared for and entertained his little sisters when his big sister was bedridden. Steve was always the life of the party. If you wanted to know where he was or you were looking for him, just follow the sound of laughter. His laughter was unmistakable. It was also very contagious. Steve loved his work and traveled extensively for it. He also didn't worry about how many miles he put on his car or his truck to get to an auction or a flea market. He may have been a small-town guy, but he was a self-made man and was sought for his skills and his work ethic. He founded his own business, SD Nichols Electric, in South Carolina, and devoted his life to its success. It doesn't surprise me that he helped with a flood in 2010. After all, he got a lot of experience as a teenager in the flood of 1972. You see, his dad had decided to build a garage. So he bought all the plywood and the 2x4s and had it all piled up by the creek when the flood came, and it went down and it dammed up the Curtis Hollow Bridge. And so his dad called in all the neighborhood boys, and they went and undammed the bridge. Fear was not something Steve ever experienced, I don't think. He would throw caution to the wind and wade into whatever situation he was needed in. John 14:1-4 tells us, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If that were not so, I would have told you. I am going there to prepare a place for you, and if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am." Jesus fulfilled that promise to Steve on Friday, July 19th. God made us, as I previously said, to have relationships with one another and to love one another. Jesus also said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Along with comfort and rest, God offers each of us peace today. People would often wonder what it's like to die. I would like to think that it's like when you were little and you would fall asleep on the couch or in the car, and your dad would slip his arms under you and carry you up, and you'd wake up in your own bed in the morning. And I think that's what it's like to die. On Friday, July 19th, Stephen Douglas Nichols fell asleep. When he did, the greatest arms in the universe slipped under him and gently lifted him up and carried him to a place that is safe and secure, a place that is his very own. I don't know what Steve's room looks like in heaven. I'm not really even sure I fathomed to guess. He was such a practical joker, it's very possible that his room is lined with all kinds of electrical switches and electrical panels that just don't work. Just give him something to do. Steve may be even developing some heavenly real estate. He may be attending an auction or a flea market. After all, those auctioneers and vendors that have gone before us need something to keep them busy too. The point I'm trying to make here is that it is not Steve's final sleep. It is his first real awakening. Steve was and is an amazing man. If we believe that Jesus lives, we must also believe that Steve lives on. God has also given us our memories of Steve. Remember how happy he made you. But just as important, remember how happy you made him. Remember how happy he is right now. And remember this. As Steve arose, he disturbed no one. The world didn't hear the voice that summoned him as Jesus allowed him to fall asleep. He quietly and gently woke with the words, "Welcome home." Into his soul, the first ray of heaven found its way, its freshness and its purity, all so solemn and yet so full of hope. These are now his. I want you to just imagine stepping out on a shore and finding it to be heaven, of taking hold of a hand and finding it to be God's hand, of breathing in new air and finding it to be heaven's air, of feeling invigorated and finding it immortality, of passing from a storm and finding eternal calm, of waking up in heaven and finding it to be home. The Bible says weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. So looking around this room with the people who knew and loved Steve, one thing becomes very clear. If life is measured by what's left behind, the life of Stephen Douglas Nichols was truly a successful one. We need to tell stories to one another and reminisce to keep the memories of our loved ones alive. I am certain Steve's family will never forget his loving heart, his hardworking hands, and the time he spent with them when he wasn't on a business trip or thinking of ways to make his electric company even more efficient. They won't want to forget how pig-headed he was either. You will probably think of Steve every time you have an electrical issue or find a great bargain at a flea market. Steve loved to have fun and had a great sense of humor. Maybe something I've said has stirred up a memory for you that you would like to share. At this time, I would like to give the opportunity to any family or friends who would like to share with us today a special memory or way in which Steve touched their lives. We're going to listen to a song as you put your thoughts together, and then Tony is going to come up first and give us some of her memories. Tony.
Hi, everybody. Okay. I'm going to start from the beginning when Steve was first born. I went for a ride one day with my father, and he took me to Sonora. He said, "This is where Stephen was brought home from the hospital." He said when he brought him home, he said, "We started our life as a family of 5. My parents then built a house in Curtis Hollow and moved the family there. Steve was my big brother, my best friend, and I'll tell you some stories. When I was little, he used to have to babysit me, and he always found a way to keep me busy while he wanted to do what he wanted to do. One example, he would go to the creek and catch bullheads and put them in a bucket, and I would have to sit and watch them. I don't know, like they're gonna jump out, but I did. But then when my mother came home, Steve got in a little trouble. He was always busy trying to figure out how something worked, like taking my dolls apart to see how their voice box worked. As we grew into adulthood, he had some very great times. We went to Nashville to the CMA Fest with our children, all of us. I'll tell you one more story. On New Year's Eve, one evening, we were out, we were young, and I had never been asked to leave a bar before. Never. But that night, we were asked to leave. 20 years later, Steve comes to me and goes, "Remember that day we couldn't go to that bar anymore?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, we can go back in. I bought the place." Oh, I laughed. I said, "Oh, here we go again." As life went on, we've always been very close. He would call me every day. I'm going to miss that phone call. I made it through all my health struggles this year. I have another angel to look after me now. And we'll all be here waiting. And thank you, Steve, for being my brother. Thank you, guys.
Is there someone else who would like to come up? Feel no guilt and laughter. He knows how much you care. Feel no sorrow in a smile that he's not here to share. You cannot grieve forever. He wouldn't want you to. He'd hope that you can carry on the way you always do. So talk about the good times, the way you showed you cared, the days you spent together, and all the happiness you shared. Let memories surround you. A word someone may say will suddenly recapture a time, an hour, a day that brings him back as clearly as though he were still here and fills you with the feelings that he is always near. For if you keep these moments, you will never be apart, and he will live forever, locked safe within your heart. So do what Steve enjoyed most and spend time together as family. Go to those flea markets, look for those bargains. Steve didn't go to the doctor, and if you asked him, he would say, "I've lived a good life." He will forever be missed, and it wouldn't surprise me a bit, even though in heaven everything is free. He may be asking God, "Where's my check?" I often wish there was a telephone line that reached to heaven, but there isn't. So in the immortal words of Stephen Douglas Nichols, with his phone calls, I'm going to end with this. We are done here. Love ya. Bye. Click. They're going to play another song, and then Garrett will come up and tell you what we're doing next.